In the previous lecture, we have seen some of the concepts like data selection, data pre-processing, data integration, data mining, pattern evaluation, knowledge presentation. Then among these, which are the steps that are involved in KDD process, knowledge discovery in database. So different companies, different industries have come up with different standards. So KDD is one standard process, knowledge discovery in database. So in that particular process, the underlying steps are 5 in number. The first one is you have to select the data, you have to pre-process the data. So whatever data cleaning and other stuff is there, that will come under data pre-processing. Once the data has been pre-processed, then if there is necessity, then we will transform the data. So that will come under data transformation step. Once the pre-processed data has been transformed, then it is in a position to get applied by certain deep data mining algorithms. So we'll be applying data mining algorithms on this transformed data. And by applying certain algorithms of data mining, we will have certain idea about, have certain insights about the data, what patterns data is exhibiting, what typical structure is there in the data. So all that structure will be analyzed, it will be interpreted and evaluated in the last stage, that is interpretation and evaluation. So standard knowledge discovery in database process that consists of 5 steps: data selection, data pre-processing, data transformation, data mining, and interpretation and evaluation. The other process, that is CRISP process, cross industry standard process, that will have different stages. The rough idea of the entire process is somewhat same, but from industry to industry, what stages? Suppose I am handling a data mining project, then I should go by this particular flow. So these standards have been set by companies. So if I am going to use KDD process, then I must have clear stage as data selection, one another step that is data pre-processing. So clearly those steps must be there in my project. So whichever strategy, whichever process you are going to adapt, you have to have all those steps that are incorporated in that particular process. So this was about KDD process. We will also see CRISP and SEMA process. And before that, we have seen data discretization yesterday. So whenever we are having a continuous kind of data, we try, because discrete data is most of the times it is easy to handle, because it is easy to have certain blocks, or in order to show some frequencies, etc. Discrete data plays important role, and therefore most of the time there is need of discretizing the data. That is done under data discretization. So certain beans or intervals of the data are prepared. Suppose given data is like this. Suppose it is normally distributed from say +3 to say 23. So we can have beans like 3 to 5. This will be one bean. 5 to 7, another bean. 7 to 9. Likewise, these 3 to 5. So for 3 to 5, we may assign value say 1. So, or even midpoints can be assigned, that itself will work as a discrete value. So 4 and corresponding frequency. So 5 to 9, this midpoint, sorry, 5 to 7, midpoint and its frequency. So this is nothing but a data discretization kind of thing. So even if we do classification, if we are having marks of say 30 students, or suppose 45 students are there in the class, and we are having marks of all these students. So those marks, there will be 45 entries of the marks. So what we can do is we can have discretization of the data as pass and fail. So based on these marks, a student will be either categorized as pass or fail. So this entire data has been classified into 2 classes or 2 beans, 2 intervals. Here, these are not intervals, these are beans. So sometimes there will be beans or sometimes intervals. Beans are just closed compartments, and interval in its mathematical meaning, it is interval is nothing but something that lies on real line. Whenever 2 endpoints are there, all points in between them must be there in the set. Then only that particular structure is called to be interval. So intervals or beans can be formed based on the given data, and accordingly data can be discretized. Then comes data visualization. As we all know, if suppose a particular a player is there, suppose a cricket player is there, and he has played 190 innings. So suppose what scores he has, what runs he has scored in every match. Suppose all those things are given this list of 190 scores are given. So whenever batsman comes for batting, in order to make audience aware about that batsman, what is done, a photo is shown of that particular batsman, and along with his certain parameters are given, his age, number of innings played, batting average is given. So suppose instead of that, all these 190 entries are given. So from those 190 entries, we will not be able to identify true caliber of that particular batsman, because reading these 190 values and coming out with some conclusion based on these 190 values is not a task that will be performed in a matter of seconds. So it will take a time. So instead of this, if we can represent this graphically, like how many times he has scored runs between 10 to 20, how many times he has scored runs between 20 to 30, like that. So that graphical, even if we don't know this value, what is this frequency, what is this frequency, just by observing these quantities, these pillars, just by observing height of these pillars, we can have some idea that what caliber that batsman is having. And therefore, whenever we want to disseminate certain information, you want to convey some information to the client, the graph or pictorial representation is the best way, because within a small time, within a small amount of time, you can easily convey the information to the other person. Because whenever you come up with certain figures and numbers and you are explaining those numbers, client may or may not understand those numbers with age, because those numbers, non-statisticians or non-mathematicians find it difficult to deal with numbers, and therefore graphs are the best way to convey some information to the other person. And therefore data visualize, and even once we visualize the data, our concept regarding the data, that also gets clear. So if there are some aspects of the data, those cannot be pointed out just by observing the data, they can be pointed out based on the graphs. Once we plot the graphs, we also may come to know about some other aspect of the data that was hidden in the given data, but just by plotting the graphs, we have come to know this may happen. And therefore data visualization, that makes our understanding about the data clear, and therefore data visualization has to be done as a explore. This is nothing but a exploratory data analysis. This is the you can say preliminary data analysis. Before going to actual data analysis, this is just a way in which we can get acquainted with the data, we can get compatible, we can get comfortable with the data, and therefore data visualization has to be done before data analysis in order to have a clear-cut idea about the data. So to communicate information clearly and efficiently, data visualization uses statistical graphics, plots, information graphics, and other tools. Numerical data may be encoded using dots, lines, bars. Accordingly, there are certain graphs. Some graphs are just they just contain dots. You know about those dots. Those are nothing but a scatter plot type of diagrams. So they are just having dots. We haven't done any analysis to the data. Just whatever data points are there, we just have plotted those data points on graphs, and just by observing those points, we may get some idea. Suppose there is a data on, say, number of testings. Suppose a particular disease is there, and we are performing testings in order to identify patients of that disease, and y are number of positive cases. So suppose if this data is given, so there are, suppose on first day, second day, up to say 100th day. On first day, these many testings were done. On second day, these many testings were done. Likewise, on 100th day, these many testings were done. And these are the number of positive cases. So positive cases will be given. Now, just by observing this data, we may or may not get any idea. But once we plot this data, x on y axis, here number of testings on x axis and number of positive cases on y axis, we may find that data is like this. So it simply means that they are going to have a positive correlation, and that one is going to be significant positive correlation, because the way in which data has been spread in first quadrant, based on that particular structure of the data, we can come with the conclusion that definitely this particular data is going to have positive and significant correlation coefficient. It may be 0.5 or more than 0.5. So just by observing, just by plotting this particular graph, we haven't done any line fitting or such kind of things. Even we don't have, we haven't done any grouping or binning kind of thing. Just whatever data points are there, just bring those data points and plot those points on graph paper. Just by doing this, we are getting idea that there is going to be positive correlation, negative correlation, or we may get idea that the variables x and y, they are going to be independent. Likewise, just by plotting the data, we are going to have certain idea, and therefore this data visualization that enhances our knowledge about the system, even if there are some hidden factors that may not be noticed just by observing the data, they can be noticed by observing the graph of the corresponding data. So for dots, there are scatter plots, lines are there, line diagrams are there, bar diagrams are there. So those are the ways in which we can visually communicate a quantitative message. So whatever quantity we are having, whatever data we are having, numerical data we are having, that numerical data can be conveyed to the client based on these graphs. So this is a visual or graphical way of expressing the data. Effective visualization helps users analyze and reason about the data and evidence. It makes complex data more accessible, understandable, and usable. So if data is quite complex, now suppose there is a data which contains 100 variables and 1000 entries are there. So 1000 units are there on which we have taken the data, and on each unit we have observed 100 variables. So that data is going to be somewhat complex of 100 cross 1000 dimensions. So just by observing the data, we cannot just those will seem to be just numbers, nothing else. But once we plot those particular once we plot graphs corresponding to that particular data, then we are going to have clear idea about the data. So that data, that complex data becomes more accessible, understandable, and usable. Users may have particular analytical tasks such as making comparisons or understanding causality. Now, suppose COVID data is there and we want to have a data regarding, suppose in a particular city, Pune, we are having number of deaths or number of positive patients, and those graphs are plotted like this. So on first day, these many deaths were there. On second day, these many deaths were there. On third day, these many deaths were there. Then on fourth day, fifth day, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, and so on. Now we can say that deaths are decreasing. This on third day the peak was attained, and now on third day onwards deaths are decreasing. Now we want to compare same situation with another city, say Mumbai. So for the Mumbai, what graph is there? On first day, how many deaths were there? So suppose these many deaths were there. On second day, these many deaths were there. On third day, these many deaths were there. On fourth day. So just by observing this particular graph, we may say that deaths in Mumbai are also decreasing. Deaths in Mumbai are also decreasing, but the rate with which deaths are decreasing in Pune, comparing to that, the rate in Mumbai is quite slow. Because earlier, what was happening? Number of deaths in Mumbai were less than number of deaths in Pune. Later on third day, number of deaths in Mumbai surpassed the same count of Pune. But when this count of Pune started decreasing, it has a sharp fall. But whereas this fall of Mumbai is not that much sharp, so number of deaths in Mumbai are also decreasing, but comparatively they are not decreasing with that much rate. The rate is quite slower comparing to Pune. So this is nothing but a comparison of two data sets. One was from Pune, one was from Mumbai. So graphs can also be used for comparison purpose. And that comparison, you don't have to have any tool for that. Just by observing that particular graph, any layman, any person who is not having any scientific knowledge or statistical mathematical knowledge, they can also easily point out the differences between two graphs. And therefore graphs, they are always the best way when we want to compare the data sets. So such as making comparisons, understanding causality. Now if we want to suppose x and y, these are two variables, and we want to verify whether x causes y. Now there are plenty of interesting researches going on. So there was one research that consuming chocolate will decrease your chances of getting cancer. So whether that is true or not, that we can verify statistically. We can have a data on certain persons who are having who are consuming chocolates, and also we'll have data whether they are suffering from cancer or not. So the cancer patients, the data will contain cancer patients as well as persons who are not having cancer. And by comparing their patterns of consuming the chocolate, we can come with the idea whether that consumption of chocolate, whether that decreases the risk of cancer. So likewise, whenever we say that two factors, two variables are dependent on each other, that is x causes y, simply we can plot the graph, and whether we will see whether there is a clear cut regression, or there is a relation among them, that whether x whether change in x is causing y to change by certain amount. If that happens, then we can say that there is possibility that x and y may have causal effect on each other. That causality can be understood by studying the graphs and the design principle of the graphic, that is showing comparisons or showing causality. So whatever comparison or causality is there, that can be exhibited, shown by graphs. Tables are generally used where users will look up a specific measurement, while charts of various types are used to show patterns or relationship in the data for one or more variables. Now, table is also a kind of visual representation, but that is just a consolidation kind of thing. Whatever data we are having, we will just consolidate it, we will just tabularize it, we will just have a concrete way of representing that particular data. But whereas in charts or graphs, patterns can be found out easily based on those charts. Even in tables also we can find the charts. Even if we consider leaf and stem chart, that is just like a table, you can say. So 10 to 20 there are say 5 values, 20 to 30 there are 7 values, 30 to 40 there are 8 values. So this is just a table. Now what is leaf and stem chart? Now this 10 to 20, all values will be, suppose 10 to 19, suppose we are considering inclusive classes, so 10 to 19, so one, this will work as a stem, and all other values, say there are values like 12, 13, 14, 17 and 18, these 5 values are there in this particular. So this 1, then 2, 3, 4, 7, 8. Then in the second 20 to 30, 7 values are there. So 21, 21, 22, 23, 27, 28, and 29. So corresponding to these 2, 1, 1, 2, 3, 7, 8, 9. So this works as a leaf, this works as a stem, and these are leaves of this particular graph. So this data, this tabular form is somewhat similar to leaf and stem chart. So in here also we are going to get idea that it is going to be suppose here it is say 6. So this is going to be symmetric. Peak will be there in 20 to 30. So data is somewhat looking like a normal. It can be considered to have been derived from normal distribution. So such things can be identified from tables or charts, but charts are the best way in order to understand the data. But there is one drawback of this charts or visual things, because our brain is having a magical power. Whatever it sees, whatever it watches, that particular thing it easily grasps. So whatever our eyes see, and whatever that, whenever that message is conveyed to the brain, we can easily identify what is being seen. Now you must have seen one WhatsApp message that is being forwarded nowadays. So in that particular message, a paragraph is given, and in that paragraph every word is shuffled in the sense, now this specific, this word will be written like S E P C I F C. So in between whatever word letters are there, this first and last letter will be kept constant, and word letters in between them will be shuffled in any order. But still we are able to read that particular message. I will share that particular message to you people after the lecture. So even you know that words are shuffled, but still you are able to read that message without any difficulty. This is happening because our brain is having magical power. Our brain doesn't reads a word letter by letter. It reads word as a whole. So whenever it watches this particular thing, it will come up with pronunciation as specific. So, and sometimes it may happen, we may not know, we may not come to know that there is spelling mistake in the word. Even if spelling mistake is there, we read the word correctly. It means that that word is read out as a word, as a whole. The brain doesn't reads that word letter by letter. And therefore, this is a, we can say this is a merit of brain as well as demerit of the brain, because if there are some, suppose that one is a code, suppose this is a code, and if this has to be read in this specific order, it should not be read like specific, then there is going to be problem. So such problems can be there. So this is the power, this is the problem that is going to happen with visual representation. Whenever we are visually representing something, there may be chance that you are misinterpreting the information because of this power. As you all people know, our eyes are having a power, or you can say demerit as illusion. That illusion effect can be there. Because of that also, we may get some wrong idea about the data. Consider this first example. In this first example, all these three persons are of equal height. They are not having different heights. Their heights are same, but the way in which this picture is depicted, the way in which this picture is shown, it may seem that this person is heighted than these two persons. We may feel that this person is a short person, whereas this is the taller person. But these three persons are of the same height, but the way in which they are represented, because of that, it seems that this person is heighted. Even in this particular graph also, all these lines, this line, all these lines are parallel to each other. But the way they are represented, it seems that they are going to intersect with each other now or later. But they are parallel lines. This is just effect of illusion. So such things may happen. So therefore, whenever you are representing the data graphically, you have to be cautious. You have to be extra careful that whatever representation you are going to give, that representation should not be misinterpreted. That representation should not give wrong conclusion from the data. And therefore, whenever we are presenting the graphs, those graphs should give clear insight about the data. This should not mislead to the client. Then there is one concept, imbalanced data. Imbalanced data, suppose it happens that suppose we want to study effect of say addiction on cancer. Suppose tobacco addiction, how it is affecting on cancer, that we need to study. So you suppose you have gone to a particular place and there you have collected the data, but fortunately that particular village or the place where you have gone, that village, suppose that is having say a population of 200. Out of those 200, only 2 persons are there who are addicted. They are having tobacco addiction, and remaining 198 persons are non-addicted persons. Now these 2 persons, they may or may not have cancer. So fortunately, suppose one is not having cancer and one is having cancer. So if we collect data from these 200 individuals, so from these 200 individuals, you are going to collect the data, and suppose if we classify the data as cancer, yes or no, addiction, yes or no. So out of these 200, 198% are non-addicted. So 198% are non-addicted and 2 persons are addicted. Out of these 2 persons, one is having cancer, one is not having the cancer. And suppose out of these 198 persons, say 180 persons are non-addicted and say 18% are having cancer. Even if you do not have any tobacco addiction, then also there are chances that you will develop cancer. So suppose this is the data. Now here you may say that among the addicted persons who are addicted, among them only one person is infected by cancer. Only one person is infected by cancer, whereas among non-addicted persons, 18 persons are infected by cancer. We cannot say infected because this is not an infectious disease. They are suffering from cancer, we can say. cancer is not infectious. That may give wrong meaning. So out of two addicted persons, one is suffering from the cancer, while among these 198 non-addicted persons, 18 are suffering from cancer. So more non-addicted persons are suffering from cancer than addicted persons. More number of non-addicted persons are suffering from cancer than the number of cancer patients in addicted population. So this has happened because our data is not balanced. This particular category contains 198 values, whereas this category contains only two values, and therefore we cannot have comparison at a numeric level. This will be this is just an absolute comparison that should not be there. We have to consider relative, 1 relative to 2 and 18 relative to 190. So prevalence of cancer in this particular setup is 1 out of 2, whereas in this particular setup it is 18 out of 190, and then we can compare these two values, and then we can come to a proper conclusion. Or suppose it may happen that suppose you want to study a credit card data. That one is a standard data in data mining. So suppose you have suppose bank has given you data on its existing 10,000 customers. These are the credit card users of the bank. The first person, second person, and this is 10,000 persons. On this first person, what is its credit limit? So how much amount he can enjoy using that credit card? That credit limit will be given. Suppose there are different types of credit cards, say MasterCard, Visa card. So which type of credit card he is having, whether he is having platinum card, gold card, MasterCard, MasterCard, like that. So types will be given. Now gender will be given of that particular person, whether he is male, female, transgender, likewise. Some other aspects, say age, income of that particular person, his salary, monthly salary if he is salaried person, or monthly income if he is businessman or non-salaried person, and finally whether he has defaulted the credit card bill or not. Defaulted the credit card bill means he hasn't paid the credit card bill, he has worked as a defaulter. So fortunately or unfortunately, we are having many examples of credit card defaulters in our country. Therefore you must be having idea what is meant by defaulting a particular payment. So if you have taken a loan from bank and if you haven't paid back, then you are a defaulter. So credit card defaulter means you have used your credit limit, and whatever grace period is there, say 40 days, 45 days, during that 40 or 45 days you haven't paid that particular amount back to the bank, so you will be a potential defaulter. So just hold on for a minute, I'm having a phone call. Just sorry for the interruption. So this data will be given for the credit card user. So his credit limit, his type of the card, gender, age, income, salary, all those things will be given, and whether he has defaulted the payment or not, that will be given. This will be our label kind of thing, class label, or this will be, in statistical terms, it will be a response variable. So this particular person, based on all these things, can we have a model such that based on all these things, whether he is going to be a defaulter or whether he is not going to be defaulter, that we have to predict. So whatever model we are going to build, whatever algorithm that we are going to have, that algorithm will tell us based on these information whether the person is going to be defaulter or not. So for that, what we are going to do is, suppose this bank has given you data on 10,000 entries, and for all those 10,000 entries This yes no's are given, whether that person has worked as a defaulter, that person is defaulter or non-defaulter, that will be given. Now what we will have is, we will train our model. Suppose y is equal to say alpha plus beta 1 x1. Now here there are some qualitative characters also, so it won't be a regular regression kind of model, but suppose for simplicity we take like this. So suppose this model is there, then based on this entire data of 10,000 entries, we will train this model. And while by training, what I mean, this alpha will be estimated, beta 1 will be estimated, beta, just I will give you brief idea about training. So what is training? Suppose this is the data of, say here in this case 10,000 entries, and we already are having a model, say y is equal to alpha plus beta 1 x1 plus beta 2 x2 plus beta n xn. So this is the model in which we are having n variables. Based on these n variables, we want to estimate y, and this is the data. Now here, this as a theory, we know this model, but what is alpha, what is beta 1, that we don't know. That will be dependent based on the data. So what we will do, so in ancient period, there was a Gurukul kind of system. So a student, a boy or girl, that was sent to the Gurukul, and he will have training, and after training he will come with gaining knowledge. So whenever a particular boy or girl, we are sending that to, suppose in modern era, suppose there is some training institute, and we are sending someone to that training institute. He will go there, he will learn something, and then he will come back. Whenever he comes back, he has been trained. So untrained person, that will be entered, that will be admitted in, say, training institute, and there he will learn something, and whenever he comes out of that training institute, he will be a trained person. So this is where training happens. So now this particular model is not a trained model. This is just a rough model, y is equal to alpha plus beta xi, I running from 1 to n. Now this data is there, and data is nothing but the opportunity to learn. Whenever I say data, you must feel excited that I have got the opportunity to learn, because data, when it is bulky, that particular data is going to give us enormous knowledge. And therefore, whenever I say data, there should be spark in your eyes that yes, I am going to get some knowledge out of that data. So if there is data, then that data can work as a training institute, because that data is going to give us more knowledge. And therefore, this is our world. This is our world, or this is someone to whom we are going to send to this training institute. So this we will send to this particular data. We will say that we will say to this model, come here and have look on this data. You just have to pass through this data, and after passing through this data, you will get some knowledge. So we will talk sweet terms to that particular model, and we will ask that model to pass through this particular data. So this data can work as a filter, and we will tell this particular model go and have some enjoyment in this particular data, go and roam in that particular data, and then come out of that particular data. And whenever you come out of that particular data, you will be a brand new thing. You will be someone who is knowledgeable, someone who is trained. So this model will go inside this, and from this data, while going from here to here, it will observe the first observation here. And what is that first observation? It is this first person who is having credit limit this much, who is having this type of credit card, who is having this gender, and who has defaulted the payment. So he will look at that particular person, and he will note the difference. Okay, you are having MasterCard and you have defaulted the payment. Okay, I see. Then he will move ahead. Then here there is a person who is female and who hasn't defaulted the payment. Then he will point out that thing. Okay, you are female and you haven't paid the you have paid the payment, so you are not a defaulter. So whenever it moves from first observation to the last observation, whenever it reaches up to the last information, his education, his training has been completed. Now it has gone through all those observations, and now he will say that, okay, if this is the case, then that person is going to, because whatever I have observed among these 10,000 observations, based on that, I have come to some conclusion that if this happens, if the person is male, if his salary is say 10,000, in between 10,000 to 15,000, if he is having MasterCard, then definitely he is going to default the payment, because that is what I have learned from the data. So this model will come out with certain kind of things. So whenever a model comes out of this particular thing, now it was looking like this when it went inside. Now it will be like this: y is equal to 2 plus 3.5 x1 plus 5.3 x2 minus 3.9 x3, like this. So now it has understood what this beta 1 should be, what this beta 2 should be. Based on the data, it has come up with certain numerical values to it. So based on these 10,000 values, I have come up with a certain model. And now what you have to do, whenever a new customer arrives, this customer arrives to the bank and he says that I want a credit card. So whenever a customer arrives, we cannot directly give credit card to him. We will ask him to fill a form. So he will fill form, what credit limit he wants, what type of card he wants, what is his gender, his or her gender, what is his or her age, what's income, salary. All these things will be filled in a form. There will be an application form kind of thing. All these entries will be filled. Or we can develop an app at the entrance of the bank. Bank branch will be there, and at the entrance of that branch there will be a computer, and in that computer a certain program will be there, or we can have a mobile app. In that mobile app, a person will fill all these details. So what is his what credit limit he wants, what type of data credit card he wants, all these entries will be filled in. Then that particular app will perform this operation, because that app has learned something from this data of 10,000 size. So it has learned, it means that it has come up with some quantification to the coefficients. So whatever coefficients are there, those coefficients are quantified now. Those coefficients were theoretical in nature, but when it went through this particular data, it has learned that beta 1 should be 3.5, okay, beta 2 should be 5.3. Likewise, it has learned all those beta coefficients. So if it has learned, then whenever a new customer comes in, that model will just ask him, okay, tell me your what credit limit you want, okay, tell me what is your gender, tell me what is your age. And by taking all that data, it will just feed that data into this model. All other things are known. 2 is known, 3 point, these are constant, so all other things are known. Only the unknown things are x1, x2, x3, and those unknown things, what things we want, those should be there in the application form. So application form will be designed accordingly, and whatever entries are there in the application form, those entries will just be popped out here, and this y will be calculated, and finally this model will tell us whether y is equal to 0 or 1. So if y is equal to 0, suppose defaulter and non-defaulter, so nomenclature is like this. So if 0 comes out, it means that yes, he is going to be defaulter. So based on previous knowledge, whatever experience we are having, whatever 10,000 customers we were having in our bank, based on information on those 10,000 customers, we have come to the conclusion that you are going to default, because that is our experience in the past. So based on your information, whatever information you have given to us, and whatever entries we are already having in our database, comparing to that, there are chances that you are going to default the payment, and no, therefore we cannot give credit card to you. So such decisions can be taken at a branch bank level. So this is just a simple example where whatever data of 10,000 persons was available to us. Based on that, we learned something. What as a human being, what we are doing, we are learning through the experience. Whatever we are observing day by day, whatever things are around us, based on that we are learning. So that kind of learning we are imposing in a machine, that is nothing but a machine learning. So we are giving data to the machine, and we are asking that machine to learn out of that particular data. So this model, whenever it passes through data and it comes out with some new learning, it means that it has been trained. So this particular data is used to train this particular model. So this model is now trained based on this data of 10,000 entries, and whatever comes out, this is a trained model. So whenever we are saying training of a model, in statistics we haven't used these terminologies so far. Training or testing, validation we have used, but training our model, testing our model, these things we haven't come across. We have done those things, but not with respect to these terminologies. So what is training? Training is just estimation of coefficients. Now beta 1, beta 2, beta 2, beta n, these are nothing but parameters. Like, right, this is a regression model, and for this regression, now suppose we are having normal model, then mu sigma square, these are the parameters. So this is a model, normal is a model. Suppose if we are having Poisson model, Poisson is a model and this is the parameter. Similarly, this y is equal to this much, this is a model, this is a regression model, and beta 1, beta 2, beta n, these are the parameters. So what we have done here is a parameter estimation. So parameter estimation is nothing but a training of the model. So whenever you train a model, now suppose we based on some historical knowledge, we know that underlying distribution is going to be normal, but we don't know mean and variance of that particular distribution. So we will pass this distribution to this data. So suppose data on 10,000 entries is available on single variable. So this will pass through this, and whenever it comes out, it will be normal 3, 5. So this mu is estimated to be 3, sigma square is estimated to be 5. So this parameter estimation is nothing but the training of model. So we already have done this. Only the terminology is new to us because we are coming out of that distribution kind of thing. We are not going to restrict ourselves in terms of distribution only, because whatever we are going to have, that itself is so large that we will not try to fit it into a certain distribution. That entire thing will be taken to be a population. We will not try to find out its parent population. That data itself will be taken to be parent, data itself will be taken to be population, and based on that we will be finding parameters. So estimating parameters is nothing but a training of model. So whenever we train a model, it means that whatever coefficients or whatever unknowns are there in the parameter, those we have to estimate. Once we have done that based on the given data, then we say that we have trained a model. So if that ANN is there, suppose support vector machine, whatever model we are having, that model is going to have certain parameters. Whether those, how to estimate those parameters, some strategy has to be there. So based on what model we want to have, based on that there are different strategies, all those models, but overall there is a unique strategy that model will pass through that particular data, and whenever it comes out of that data, then it will learn something new, and that thing will be nothing but a trained model. So training of a model is nothing but estimating the parameters. Mind it, training of the model is nothing but estimating the parameter. So I was talking about imbalanced data. So whenever we are training the model, now suppose in this particular setup, fortunately out of these 10,000 customers, say 98%, or forget about percentage, 9,998 persons have repaid the loan. So they are non-defaulters, and only 2 persons are there who are defaulters. Only 2 persons are there who are defaulters. Suppose this one is a person who is defaulter, this one is a person who is defaulter. All others are yes. Only these two are defaulters. Suppose suppose now the variable is named as whether customer has repaid the payment or not. So if he hasn't repaid, then he is a defaulter. Now this model, it will go through this entire data, but while going through this data, it will find only 2 entries who are defaulters. So it will not get a clear idea that who are those persons who are going to be defaulters, because he is exposed to only 2 such persons, and just by observing these 2 persons, that model will not get an exact idea that what are the characteristics that makes you defaulter, what are the variables that makes you defaulter. That person, that model will not get a complete idea because he is exposed to only 2 such persons. So whenever we want that model to be efficient, it has to be exposed to both the categories. Defaulters, there should be ample number of defaulters. Similarly, there should be a sufficient number of non-defaulters also. Then only model will get a clear idea about who are going to default the payment and who are not going to default the payment. But if in the entire data there are only 2 defaulters, then we cannot do anything with that, because that data itself is a population, and that population we are having only 2 defaulters. So suppose if we want to have a training of model based on this 10,000 observation, or suppose out of these 10,000 values, 10,000 observations, suppose 1,000 values we need for some other purpose, 1,000 entries we need for some other purpose. So we will analyze only 9,000 entries. So we have to make sure that these two entries are there in the 9,000, because if those two entries are not there in 9,000, then all of this data will be data of non-defaulters, and as such model will never learn that who are going to default the payment, what it means by defaulting the payment. Model will never learn, because model is, suppose uh, you you never have any suppose you haven't been exposed to, say, mobile. Suppose now you are having mobiles, but suppose in other countries mobile is there, and in India mobile is such instrument is not there. If this is the case, then you will never learn how to use the mobile, because you are never exposed to that instrument. But whenever you are exposed to that instrument, only then you learn out of that instrument. So if a model is not exposed to certain persons who are defaulters, then model will never come to know what it means by defaulting. And therefore we have to make sure that both the category people are there. So if class label here is yes, no, if suppose there is class label like pass, fail, ATKT, so based on certain characteristics of students, we have to classify them as pass, fail, or ATKT students. So this model should will learn only when it will have data of some past students, data on some failed students, and data on ATKT students. So all these students should be there in the data set. Only then it will be able to learn from the data. But many times what happens, data is imbalanced. Likewise, there are only 2 credit card defaulters, so model will have less chances of a proper learning. So suppose there are 300 defaulters and only 3 non-defaulters. Then based on this particular information, model will not be able to learn. So this is nothing but a imbalanced data. So we are not expecting that both class labels should have equal data. If there are 300 defaulters, then there has to be 300 non-defaulters. We are not expecting like that, but at least they should be comparable. If there are 300 defaulters, then there can be 200, 178 non-defaulters. But 303, these two numbers are not comparable. 303, these two numbers are not at all comparable. Therefore model will not learn from this particular data with much efficiency. It will learn, but that learning is of no use, so to say. So classification data set with skewed class proportion. Here you can see very much skewness is there. Now if this is 300, this is 300, then that is a symmetric kind of thing. But skewness is allowed. We are not expecting that all the data should be symmetric. We are okay with the skewness, but there has to be some limit for skewness. Now 303, these are very different things. A highly skewed data this is, and therefore learning out of this data, that makes a problem for the data. So classification data set with skewed class proportions is called imbalanced. Classes that make up a large proportion of the data set are called majority classes. Like the class which is having frequency 300, that will be a majority class, and there will be minority classes who are having very less occurrence in the data set. Those that make up a smaller proportion are minority classes. An imbalanced classification problem is an example of a classification problem where the distribution of examples across the known classes is biased or skewed. The distribution can vary from a slight bias to a severe imbalance, where there is one example in the minority class for hundreds, thousands, or millions of examples in the majority class or classes. So one example in minority class for 100 or 1,000 examples in majority classes. There will be hundreds and thousands of entries in majority classes, and there will be only one example in minority class. If this is the case, then learning is difficult in that particular situation. And therefore whenever we are going to learn out of the data, whenever our model is expected to learn out of the available data, the data that we are feeding to that particular data, feeding to that particular model, that data should be balanced. Only then it will learn cleverly, it will learn from the available data with some efficiency. So this was about data visualization and imbalanced data. Now this CRISP and SEMA methodologies are there. We'll just go through these methodologies. So CRISP stands for Cross Industry Standard Process for Data Mining, and this is a very latest concept. In 1999, I think this in 1996 this concept has been put forth. So Cross Industry Standard Process. This abbreviates as CRISP DM for data mining. So CRISP DM is a process model with 6 phases that naturally describe the data science lifecycle. So if any one of you has been exposed to software development, he must have heard about software development lifecycle, SDLC, software development lifecycle, or software testing lifecycle. So whenever we are developing a new software in IT industry, this is a common terminology, SDLC or STLC, software development lifecycle. What are the stages in software development lifecycle, or what are the stages in software testing lifecycle? So whenever you are developing a software, it doesn't come starts with a computer and programming. Firstly, we should understand the requirement for what purpose we are going to prepare that software, whether we are going to prepare that particular software for online registration of vaccines, or whether we are preparing that software for online booking of gas cylinders, or whether we are preparing that software for a ATM machine. So likewise, what is the requirement? Based on that, what data it should accept. So whenever we are considering a software for COVID vaccine registration, then it asks Aadhaar number, because there has to be some transparency in the process. Therefore, Aadhaar number is mandatory. Whenever a software is there at ATM counter, then it asks whether it is a saving account, whether what is your PIN. So these things are necessary in that perspective. So what software, what purpose you need that particular software, that purpose is required, and that purpose has to be documented. Because whenever a client comes to you and he says that this is my requirement, and you have to prepare the software, and you will prepare the software, and then client will say that no, this was not our purpose, our purpose was slightly different, and you have prepared a wrong software. These things may happen. Therefore, whatever you are saying, that has to be documented. So whenever a client comes to some IT industry, he comes with a functional specification, or we call it FS. In that functional specification, whatever requirement is there for the software development, that requirement will be there. So there has to be some ATM card. Now suppose a person a person is having a negative balance, or suppose a person is having balance of say 400 rupees, and if he is trying to withdraw 500 rupees, then if policy of that particular bank is like a minimum balance has to be 500, and therefore we cannot go below 500. So if according message has to be displayed there that your balance is less than 500, so we are unable to serve your request, unable to process your request. So all these things should be there in the functional specification. What kind of software you want, how it should behave in what situation, all these things will be there in functional specification. Accordingly, software will be prepared and then it will be tested. So whenever a thing has to be done in industry, that has to be done in a specific manner. So all that flow has to be documented, because this is industry. This is not a task that you are doing on a friendly basis. If your friend comes to us and he comes to you and he asks you to prepare a software, there you can prepare software and that's it. But whenever it is an industry thing, there are legal aspects to it, and whenever there are legal aspects to it, all things should be documented. And therefore, whenever a person, suppose I am having a hotel, suppose I am having a resort, and for that particular resort, whatever data I am having for last 5 years, that data I need to get analyzed from someone. Some statistical consultant company will be there, and I am giving my data to them, and I am asking them to what strategy I should have in order to increase my revenue. Whether I should come up with certain promo codes for high worth customer who are business class people, or whether I should give discount for old age people, or whether I should give discount in slack period, like say June to November. During this period, whether I should give a discount, likewise, or whether I should give discount on bulk booking. These things should be done. Whenever a company comes with certain strategies that we are offering promo codes, we are offering discounts on bulk booking, that doesn't strikes their mind all of a sudden, and they will come up with that particular model. It won't happen. For any promotional code, even if you are getting any promotional code for Freecharge or Paytm, there is a very efficient, very thoroughly data mining tools are applied on that particular data, and after thorough application of those data mining tools only, they will come up with certain uh, promo code for you. By applying this promo code, you will get cashback of rupees 10 or rupees 20, like that. So all these processes are standard processes. They have to be listed, and therefore there are certain standard processes: CRISP process, SEMA process, and KDD. Apart from these, also Scrum is some a very recent process, and that is being now now applied in more companies. Now more and more companies are switching to Scrum. So as a out of curiosity, you may also study that scrum process also, but as a part of syllabus we will see this CRISP and SEMA. If time permits, then we will also have a look over Scrum and other technologies like agile principles and other things. So this particular model involves 5 steps: business understanding, data understanding, data preparation, modeling, evaluation, and the last one will be deployment, sixth one. Now, whenever you are tackling any business problem, firstly you should understand the business, what kind of business that company is doing. If some company is doing some resort kind of thing, resort business, then you should understand how that company is getting revenue. So some persons are coming over there, they are residing there, and they are paying for that. From that they are getting the revenue. Moreover, they might have some tie-ups with certain companies in the same city. So whenever any employee of your company comes to you, this location for a business meet, then you should arrange his accommodation at our hotel. So these kind of types should will be there. So from this also they are going to get revenue. At the entrance, or in that particular resort, at different places there can be hoardings, there can be advertisements. So company may be getting revenue from those advertisements. Even if you specifically in Solapur, if you go in hotels, then you are getting there is some company, water bottles are there. You all people know very well about the name of that company. So that water bottles are there, and those are manufactured. Suppose you are if you have gone in hotel XYZ, then that water bottle will have company name, and then below that particular company name there will be a sentence written specifically manufactured for use in hotel XYZ. So that is a tailor-made thing, and that idea is a outcome of a data mining tool. So likewise, there are different businesses. From that particular aspect also we are going to get revenue. So revenue is not something that customer pays to us. There are different sources of revenues by which we can have monetary values. So all those things we should understand, from where that company is making the business, what are their competitors in the city, whether their competitors are in the same city or whether competitors are in different other cities, how long they are, what they are offering, what this company should offer. All these things should be understood. Only then we can understand the data and we can analyze it. So business understanding directly, as a statistician, if someone comes to you and he gives you an Excel sheet of the data, and you will have whatever is there in column number 5 and whatever is there in column number 6, you will just have chi-square test for independence on them, and you will give the output to those persons. It won't happen. What data they have come up with, that data should be understood. Which business has generated that data, that business has to be understood by us. Then only we are in a better position to analyze the data. The first thing in CRISP they have defined is business understanding. We should understand what are the business need. What now, suppose in the present days, because of this COVID and other diseases like that, people are worried to go outside. So this is the time when grocery owners should think of home deliveries. So this is the need of the society right now. So instead of waiting for customer to come to us, we should go at the doorstep of the customer, and that is what is being done by Zomato and Swiggy. So people, they want to have something, they want to have hotel foods, but they want to have comfort of sitting at home. So for that they have come up with tools. Just what is their investment? Swiggy and Zomato, what is their investment? Just one app. That is their investment. They do not own any hotel or other things. They just have an app. what Ola and Uber are having. They do not have their own cars, they are just having their apps. So based on the customer requirements, they are coming up with certain ideas. So what society needs, what are the business needs, based on that we can come up with certain ideas that will increase revenue of the company. So business understanding is a very very important steps. We and statisticians generally overlook this particular step. They do not give more weightage to this particular step, business understanding. But mind it, business understanding is the foremost, the important, most important. Unless and until you understand the business, you are not going to add revenue to the your client. So business understanding is the first step. Then out of that business, what data we have generated, that data must be analyzed. So if there is certain column y, what that y means, whether there, if there is group booking, then y is 1, and if there is solo booking, single booking, then y is equal to 0. If that is the case, if there are, suppose yatra companies are there, yatra.com is there, kesaritours.com, there are certain tour companies, Vinaward is there. So all those, whatever data is generated from in that particular aspect, so that data must be understood first. There may be some whether that particular person who is registering for a tour, whether that person is having a passport or not. If he is not having passport, then we have to process that particular thing, and then it may take some time. So what data we are having, that data firstly we should understand each and every variable, what that variable denotes and what are its consequences, that we should understand. That comes under this particular step. That data understanding should be done. We should understand with, we should have an idea whether that data is clean or not. If it is not clean, then we have to make it clean. So whatever model we are going to use on that data, firstly we should prepare our data for that model. So once we prepare the data, then only we can apply model on the data. So data preparation is the next step. How do we organize the data for modeling? Because whenever a data, suppose some software is there at the reception of the result, so they will ask certain details to the client, and they will enter those details in their software. But at the back end, suppose at the end of data, at the end of day, we can download the data sheet of that particular day. So in that particular data set, data will be as per their needs, whatever their requirement is there, according to that data will be there. But what statisticians need, how that data should be converted in order to have a application of certain model on it. So we should change the data accordingly. We should change the data in the sense we should process the data accordingly. We should prepare the data such that after that preparation or pre-processing of the data is now in the form of getting form which is compatible for getting applied by certain model. So data will be in a stage where we can apply certain model onto it. So once we have prepared the data, then we can go for the modeling. So which models, by having some domain knowledge or by looking at the data, you are going to have certain idea about the model, which model fits best for this particular situation. We cannot say best actually, because no model is best. It is said that all models are wrong, but some are useful. So because we are just trying to model out the errors, so we are not going to get 100% efficient model, but whose efficiency is more than other models, other competitor models, that model will be taken to be a better model, and that will be the working model for ourselves. So such models will be finding based on the given data. Then what model we have come up with, that model, suppose that model is like you should have suppose in that particular resort there are many persons who want to visit that particular resort because it seems good, but they are in their family they are having children, and there is no park, or there are no toys in that particular resort, and therefore these families are avoiding that particular resort. So if your model now this can be this information can be extracted from the opinion data of the people. So whoever is residing over there, we can collect data from them, so that opinion data can be analyzed, and based on that we may come up with the idea that there has to be some garden, or there has to be some toys section, so that families with children may have more visits to this particular resort. So such kind of outputs we can come up with based on the data. So whether it is justifiable, now this is our idea as a statistician, we have come up with this idea. But in that particular resort, if there is no place for having a garden, then that resort owner will not accept that particular, that idea is okay, but that idea is not implementable. So those things also should be considered. So whatever we are coming up with statistics, whether that is implementable for a client or not. If it is not implementable, then we have to seek for other ideas that will increase the revenue. So whatever ideas we are proposing based on that model, that idea also needs to be evaluated. Which model best meets the business objective? Suppose we have come up with 3 models based on the given data, then what are the business objectives of that resort owner, and which model fits good for that particular, which model meets the requirement of the business, that model can be considered. So once we have come up with certain models mathematically, then practically based on the business needs, we will choose one model out of those available models. Once model has been developed, it means that now setting up a garden in that resort, that is our model. So that is going to increase the revenue. So that model will be deployed there. It means that we will have a garden there. Now once we are having the garden, and that's it, our project is finished, it won't happen. Later on, we should do post-mortem analysis. So after setting up a garden in that resort, is there any increase in number of visitors, number of residents at that particular resort? Whether suppose now only 100 suites were getting booked, 100 rooms were getting booked, now 150 rooms are getting booked, but that increased 50 count, whether that is because of that garden or not, that also needs to be verified. So whenever after setting up gardens, new customers arrive there, then we should collect the data whether you are having children with us or not. And if we can find out that after setting up a garden, more number of families with children are coming over there, then our purpose has been satisfied. Then setting up garden has made its work. Because of that, we have increased revenue. Such things can be deployed, and such things can be we can have that meaning from that particular setup, that setting up a garden has increased our revenue. So whenever we are coming with the model, that model we will deploy, that model will be implemented. And once that model is implemented, then data will be again gathered from that system. And based on that, we will even just setting up model will not be okay. There has to be some other things. There has to be, now suppose some couples want to visit that particular garden, so accordingly a certain arrangement has to be done there in the garden. So these things also needs to be done. So just setting up a garden and that's it, that is not going to do. There has to be continuous improvement. So we have to continuously monitor the data, and based on that we should come up with other ideas that will again increase the revenue. So that all comes under deployment. So these 5-6 steps, they are discussed in detail. Business understanding, what we have to determine business objective, assess the situation, determine data mining goals, produce project plan. Likewise, every concept, every step is described. What are the sub steps in all these steps? So suppose modeling is the step, then under that modeling we should go for we should have these steps. We should select modeling techniques, we should generate test design, we should build a model, we should assess that model. So for all these 6 steps, what are the sub steps in which those 6 steps needs to be done? These things are discussed over here. So this is about CRISP model. We'll see these techniques, these steps in detail tomorrow, and also we'll go for the SEMA model. So this is all for the day.